Hello there and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ashely Liliana and I share all things living abroad, specifically my life abroad here in Santiago de Chile. So if you want to continue following my life abroad, more tips about moving and living abroad, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. So today's video is all about how to prepare for your move abroad. This video is aimed at anyone who's studying abroad for their first time, teaching English abroad for their first time, or just moving abroad. I actually have a little freebie. It's how to prepare for your move abroad checklist. It'll be linked down below. Let's get started. I'm gonna break this video up into 6 different sections. We're gonna talk about finance, health and medical, documents, technology and apps, what to prepare, and what to pack. So let's start with finance. If you're moving abroad to either teach English or study abroad, your income is not that high. It's gonna be enough to cover your living expenses. It's probably gonna be a bit more than the minimum wage in that country. So this is where savings and planning comes in. Before we begin, I really wanna make a disclaimer that I am not a professional finance expert for your savings. So this is going to look different for everybody and it's going to be personal to you. So your savings could be anything from an emergency fund that you want to have just in case something happens when you're abroad. Maybe it's an experience fund or a travel fund. One other point that I do want to bring up is remember that you have some sort of startup cost. Whether you are applying for your visa, you're going to need certain documents and those documents you're going to have to pay for them. For certain services, you're going to have to pay for your visa itself, right? There is a visa fee. You are moving completely, shipping costs or storage costs, whatever it is, right? So you really want to take a look at your finances, expenses that you're going to have to pay, like paying for your flight, maybe getting an Airbnb when you arrive. All of those things you kind of want to take into consideration and then proceed. The second thing we're going to talk about under finance is your loans, student loans, debt, card payment, credit card payments, things like that. Student loan, the thing that a lot of us have and we don't really want to have. I know that pain. So you want to be smart about it, right? You can't really call them and tell them hey, I'm going overseas for a year to have this amazing adventure and experience. They don't care, right? So you have to make sure that you're either on some sort of income-driven payment plan or you have some sort of savings that you're able to pay your monthly payment for your student loans. Whatever your situation is, whatever that may be, just make sure you have that all situated, debit card and credit cards. If you are, again, studying abroad for 4 years, for a year, moving abroad for a year or two, whatever it is, or permanently, you're probably gonna get your bank account in that country, but it's not gonna happen right away. It's gonna take probably a couple of weeks, depending on the country. So you want to have access to your accounts back home, even when you are there and you have your bank account. I know that I do. So personally for me, I always have some sort of travel credit card, a card that either gets me some sort of lounge access or travel points. I also have a low fee ATM debit card. And personally, I have the Charles Schwab because at the end of the month, any ATM fees get refunded. Another option that you might want to consider is looking into international money transfer companies that have low exchange and transfer rates. Call your bank and let them know that you are moving abroad. Credit cards say that you don't have to, but for peace of mind, I always tell them and I always call just because you never know. You don't want to go to another country and then get locked out of your accounts. And the last thing that can either go under finance and also kind of what to prepare, a month out before you leave, is I personally like to exchange money in my home country. When I arrive to my new destination, I like to have some currency from that country. Everything is just so overwhelming when you arrive that you don't really just want to go and get money at the ATM. And it's one thing to just not think about when you arrive. And you also don't want to exchange money at the airport. Whether it's the airport in your home country or the airport that you arrive to, you're not going to get a good exchange rate. Okay, let's keep on going to health and medical. So just make sure that you have your health and medicine kind of in order. So most likely, in order to apply for your visa, whether it's a student visa or temporary resident visa, you're going to need some sort of medical certificate or letter saying that you are in good health from your doctor. So make sure you have those appointments ready. You don't know if the country that you're moving to has the same kind of medicine that you are taking, so you're not sure if you're going to have access. So the best thing to do is talk to your doctor, try to get at least a 6-month supply. Another thing that I'm including in here is insurance. So most likely for any of the visas that you're gonna get, to show some sort of health insurance or travel insurance. But if you're not getting it from the country or through a program or your study abroad program, you're gonna have to get health insurance or travel insurance. So make sure you have that covered and do your research to find the best option for you. Make sure you have all your vaccines up to date. Some countries have vaccine requirements, whether it's the country that you are moving to or a surrounding country that you want to travel to. Like for example, when I came here to Chile for Brazil, you are required to have your yellow fever vaccine. Let's move on to documents. Your passport, you have your visa, health certificate, vaccine passport. All of those documents that you have are in order. Another thing that I suggest doing and preparing is also to make copies of your documents, like your passport, like your visa, any other documents. Specifically, I recommend making 3 copies of each. Now that might seem like a lot, but you're not making copies of like 20 pages of paper. The reason why I say this is because I personally make a copy of my passport, my visa. Sometimes the embassy or the consulate that you get your visa from gives you not only the visa in your passport, but this like additional document, and sometimes it's 2 copies, one that they keep in the consulate and another copy that the immigration officers take when you arrive in that country. This could be different for every country. There's also just other documents like the FBI background check that you might need for your visa, or other visa documents that you need to apply for your visa. I like to make copies of those. I leave one set of copies with my mom at home. I recommend leaving a set of copies with someone in your home country. The second set of copy is for me, if I lose something or if I need something. And the third copy is for things that come up that you don't even know people need it or governments need it. What I mean by that is when I was going through immigration, I had the visa in my passport, and then there was like this separate document with like my fingerprint, had all of my information, and that was going to be taken when I arrived here in Chile and at immigration. But I also wanted a copy of that document. I also had a copy of like the health insurance that I had, the background check, my health certificate, all of those copies I had for myself, because when I arrived and I had to get my ID and things like that here in Chile, they needed a copy of my passport, a copy of my visa, and you don't know if you're gonna have access to a printer anytime soon or where you're gonna have the opportunity to do that. So I just like to have a copy. Okay, next is technology and apps. You're going to want to bring your phone, your laptop, any camera gear, plugs and memory cards, all of those things that you need. The second thing I want to talk about is specifically your phone. This might look very different depending on like how you want to go about this. For example, my carrier in the States is AT&T, and in order for me to use my phone in another country with AT&T, I have to make sure that my phone is fully paid and it's also unlocked, because I can go to another country and take out my SIM card from there and then put in another SIM card. It won't allow me to do that. So make sure that you unlock your phone if you need to. The way you can do this is just check with the carrier that you have. Another option, you don't want to do that, right, and you're going to be abroad for a long period of time, you probably want to look into suspending your account or kind of closing that account so you're not having like extra costs or charges. So staying in the same topic of phones, I recommend bringing a backup phone if you can. And there's a reason why I say this, and it's from personal experience and also just like the bad luck that I've had with phones overseas. So 2 weeks into my time here in Chile in 2019, when I first moved here, my phone just died. So I ended up just purchasing the cheapest phone I could find, because my mom was actually coming to visit me for like 2 months from when that happened. So I knew, I was like, I can just deal with 2 months with my lovely little phone that just really only could text and call people, and that was basically it. Well, about 2 months after I got my new phone that my mom brought me, my phone got stolen. Thankfully, at that point, I had learned to have a backup phone. So when my mom brought me my new phone, she also brought me an old phone. I totally recommend having a backup phone, like just because, especially if something happens like off the bat, you lose your phone or something, you just don't want to probably deal with all of that stress. It can be really stressful, and if you don't speak the language and you're trying to like navigate that, it's part of life. But if you're want to avoid a little bit of that, I recommend bringing a backup phone if you can. The apps portion that you think are going to be useful abroad. It could be a currency exchange app, a language app, transportation app. Next thing to look at are your subscriptions, and cancel any unnecessary subscriptions. So there's kind of 2 ways to go about this. One, you can take a look at all the subscriptions that you have. For example, I had like Netflix and Hulu before I came. Hulu did not work in Chile, so I ended up canceling that. So take a look at some of your subscriptions, and if you're not going to be using it for the next year or 2 or whatever that time looks like for you, cancel it if you're not going to use it. Or look into getting a VPN. So the next section is what to prepare. So this doesn't really have like a specific category that I wanted to talk about things you kind of research and things that don't really fit, but you should still prepare for your move abroad, which maybe I should call it the research category. Anyways, so what I recommend doing is, because you're probably not going to have where you're going to be living before you move abroad, is to research cities or areas that you want to live in. So like if you know the city that you're going to be living in, maybe you want to look into the different areas, different neighborhoods that have piqued your interest, that you've heard about. So that kind of cuts a bit of your time when you arrive. Join different expat groups. Facebook groups are really great for expats because there's almost an expat group in every country and every city. Apartment rental groups are also really beneficial to join for the specific city that you're moving to. See what Facebook groups are out there and join them before you actually arrive. The next thing is research and like brush up on your language skills. Key phrases, slang that maybe you use day to day. Like for example, when I came here to Chile the first time, I thought, okay, like I know some Spanish, like I'll be fine. And like, yeah, that was kind of true. But here they use actually what they call a lot of Chilenismos, lots of slang every day. And so it would have been really useful if I would have done my due diligence to research and really try to learn these key phrases, so I was able to communicate and understand a lot better when I first arrived. And the final thing for this what to prepare section, I think might be like favorite tip, is to research and make a list. I recommend like sitting down one day and thinking of all of your hobbies, the foods that you want to try, the places of interest, cities that you want to visit, neighboring countries that you want to see, experiences that you want to have, whatever that is for you. Make that list, because I think it's so easy to get wrapped up in the anxiety and how overwhelming moving abroad can be, that we forget that it's also something that's fun and exciting and an adventure. So a really great way to like hype yourself up is to make a list of all the things that you want to try. Like, as silly as it is, get one of these books, you know, or read blogs on Pinterest, see what it says, food to try, places to visit, things to do, and make a list of your interests and write them down. You know, hype up this experience that you're about to have. Your list can be very basic and like be like all the touristy things at first, and that's totally fine, because as you start meeting people, locals, your coworkers, even your students, if you are teaching abroad and they are old enough, you'll really get some great recommendations, advice, and tips of things to do, and you can keep adding to that list. Okay, the next category that we're going to talk about is what to pack. I'm not going to give you a whole packing list because that is so personal depending on the city, the country that you're going to, what you're going to do there in your time abroad. Are you going to go to school? Are you going to be teaching English? Are you going to be working at some office? Are you actually a freelancer, just working, you know, on a freelancer visa for a year? It's so unique and so personal to each person. So I'm just going to give you some topics to think about when you are packing. The first thing is that if you are going to just study abroad for a year, or even if it's for like 2-3 years, or you're going to teach English, you're probably going to end up taking like 2 luggages. If you are going to be for a long time, you're probably going to consider moving companies, shipping companies, storage companies, selling your things like that. But if you're only going to go for at least for a year or 2 to start with, you're probably going to only take like 2 luggages, and I honestly recommend taking 1 to 2 luggages. Think of your lifestyle and what it is that you're going to be doing there when it comes to packing. So I definitely recommend doing some sort of research when it comes to work attire, just like what's culturally acceptable when it comes to going to school or going to work. Ask people in advance, or if you are going to be teaching abroad or working abroad, asking the company or the person who hired you, you know, what is the dress code, so you are packing for that and you're not going to be overpacking for things that you don't need and underpacking for clothes that you do. Also, then think of your lifestyle activities, the hobbies that you like to do, and make sure you pack for that and you pack accordingly. Think of personal care, maybe it's makeup, maybe it's certain products. You want to make sure that you have all of those things covered. Again, why I say this is so personal, because depending on the country, you're going to have access to certain things and certain things you won't have access to. Taking a year's supply worth of deodorant and toothpaste is probably not something that you need to do, but let's say you use a special kind of contact solution because your eyes are really sensitive. You're probably going to want to take that specific contact solution, and then maybe eventually you're going to try something else, but that's something that you might want to take. So you definitely want to be very strategic in how you pack, depending on the country and the city that you're going to, and then also what it is you're going to be doing in that country, right? School, work, and then your lifestyle. So big tip is definitely research the weather of the place you're going to. Another thing when it comes to work, I personally like taking things that I can use different ways. So for example, if I'm taking a dress, I always think, okay, would I wear this dress in the summer? Yes, great. Can I also wear this in the fall, in the spring, or even a little bit colder months, right? If I layer it with a turtleneck underneath and I wear some stockings and some boots and then like a nice jacket on top, can I wear this to work in the winter time or in the fall time, but also wear that same dress without all the other stuff, right, during a summer or a warmer month? If that's something that I can do, then that's something that I definitely take. And the last thing when it comes to what to pack is, this might be really small, but this is a tip that I always give, is to pack something that reminds you of home. And the reason I say this is because eventually you're gonna get homesick at some point during your time abroad. It's probably gonna happen a couple of months after, you know, when the excitement and the honeymoon phase is over, and having something, a piece of home with you, definitely helps. Now, again, if you're gonna move your entire life abroad, then you're probably not going to do this. But if you're someone who's going to be just studying abroad for a year or so, or maybe just teaching for a year or for 2, bringing something that reminds you of home is really helpful, and that looks different for everybody. I'm curious, so let me know down below what item you take when you move abroad, if you have done this, or what item you would take if you move abroad. I really hope that this video was helpful in calming maybe some of your nerves or your anxiety about your move abroad. Hopefully it gave you a way forward and a path. If you didn't know where to start, don't forget to download your free How to Prepare for Your Move Abroad checklist down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to continue watching my life abroad, get more tips on moving and life abroad, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I will see you in the next one. Ciao!